she's going off trail pretty often, and many of those experiments, where she goes off trail and uses her voice in a different way, or doesn't follow the kind of pattern that you would expect with her voice, I found really deeply touching.
Hey guys, the Rap Lizards are back. We talk about music. We talk about the music we love. And for the past several episodes that you've been tuning in, we've been talking about hip-hop. And if you've expected us to keep talking about hip-hop and not every once in a while talk about other genres of music, well, shame on you. Who do you think you are? Why do you think you get to tell us what to talk about? Just kidding. Hi, welcome back, guys. But we are going to talk about some music today that is not hip-hop. I am Benny. That is Dion. Dion, how you doing?
Chilling, man. Chilling. Interesting week.
Are you chilling like a villain or like Bob Dylan?
I want to say villain. That's like the what I want to project, but I fear that it's actually close to Bob Dylan.
You got Bob Dylan vibes.
Got some Bob Dylan vibes, right?
Yeah. Gary, how you doing?
These times are changing.
I don't know. What is Bob Dylan up to these days?
He released a great album.
His voice
recently.
is fucked, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. He's like crooning now. It's
That's got to be part of the appeal.
Hey, listen, I'm down with the new Dylan stuff. Gary, how are you?
Mostly bad. It's good to see you.
In a general sense, you're doing bad.
Yeah.
Bad, not good.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. I think today we could bring a little bit of that. Bring a little bit of that to the conversation.
Okay, I welcome it. I welcome the bad vibes, Gary. For all our listeners, at the end of all of our episodes, one of us picks an album that our next episode is going to be centered around. And last episode at least, Gary, what was your pick?
Yeah, so I wanted us to listen and talk about Fiona Apple's album "Fetch the Bolt Cutters," which came out a little earlier this year in the spring of 2020.
It was bound to happen soon, guys. We talked about it from day one. We didn't want to only talk about rap music. I'd say rap music is our cross section. If you did a Venn diagram of our tastes and our, musics that we love, I'd say the thing that the three of us, who, by the way, we've known each other since we were fetuses, and like the thing we always had in common was a love of great rap music.
Yep.
But we all also listened to plenty of other music. I myself probably listen to more other forms of music than I do rap. I'm just obsessed with music. I love music so much, and Gary suggested an album I never heard. So this was an interesting and revealing week for me. I discovered some things about myself. I swear to God, I don't know, like, I can't go into detail right now, but like I had revelations while listening to this album. So Gary, thank you. And I think it's only fitting that the program starts with your motive and for choosing the album and your takes on it.
Yeah, sure. I'll get into it. I mean, first of all, thanks both of you guys for coming along on this kind of leg of the adventure. It's kind of a weird one, given the context, as you said, Benny, of everything that the kind of music that we've been talking about. But
Gary, our friendship with you can only be described as a weird adventure. So,
well, there it is, right? Like I think each of us has, our taste in music is a little weird, right? We're all kind of mutants in this way, where we don't really listen to one genre of music, and there are things that we love within hip hop that are present and maybe even really prevalent in other genres of music and musicians that we wouldn't normally get into. And I think Fiona Apple's music takes us really just out of that. If we were establishing any kind of pattern, this takes us right out of it, and hopefully it'll bring out some interesting conversation. I'm glad you guys got into it. I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make.
It definitely broke the pattern. It's kind of like if you look at my Instagram feed, it's like 900 skateboarding clips, and then it's like, you know, a post about guitars or kids getting hurt, and that's okay.
Kid's always getting into everything. So yeah, look, my take on this album was, you know, it was an education for me too. I've listened to some of Fiona Apple's work before. She's had popular music kind of out in the time that, you know, amidst all the other music that we've talked about, kind of coming out in the early and mid '90s. So it's around the same kind of time period. So it's playing in the same kind of ballpark, I guess. But it really does Fiona approaches things a little bit differently. And I got to go back and listen to her earlier stuff, right? Her very first album, Tidal, was pretty different from this one. I would say, you know, just like a lot of artists' first album, they were kind of just like it was really, really edgy. And I would say Fetch the Bolt Cutters is kind of on maybe toward the other end of that spectrum. This is more like House Cat Fiona Apple, which was also really insightful and beautiful and interesting. So that was the impression I got, just like this album in the scope of her music.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to put it, man. This Tidal album, right? The first album that she dropped. Complete honest take, or complete honest admission, is that it's the only piece of her career that I am at all familiar with prior to this last week or two of listening. Yeah. Literally, that's all I knew was, and really on that, it was like her hits that were on MTV.
Yeah. Criminal.
That's how I was exposed to Fiona Apple when she was a star, right? She was like this edgy, angry woman,
young woman, whatever.
Young woman, and like it was at the end of grunge, right? Like, so grunge was no longer the main thing on the radio by '96. You know, boy bands were about to take hold, but like the MTV generation was in full effect, right? Like what you saw on MTV is what you were inundated with, and was what was on the radio also. And the video always, you know, if you had the good video and you had the right connections, you know, like that was the route to stardom at that point in the 90s. And she had that, she had, you know, some videos and some songs that were massive. And my take on them now, as well as back then, was like, oh, okay, like it's not for me, but it's not bad.
She got a great voice. She always has.
So
great voice.
Right, and it just was never my thing. So when Gary suggested this album, my literal first ignorant jump to conclusions thought was, oh man, fuck. Like, I don't listen to
Totally, Benny. Totally.
Like, I was like, I don't want to fucking listen to Fiona Apple. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Again, this is coming from a very opinionated, snobby music fan who loves what he loves and hates what he doesn't, and that's okay. I've accepted that in myself. But one thing that I was guilty of at that point, which I implore all listeners, whether you're a huge music fan, getting into music, maybe you love what you love, but you don't know other things, is I did not have an open mind. I heard a name, and I had memories of back in the day, and I was like, fuck it. Like, I was already like, fuck, this is upsetting. I was in my hip hop mode, and I wanted to blah, blah, blah. But the listening experience I had was a revelation. It was, I put on this album and I said, whoa, what the, like, wow, this is weird. And it's like really weird music. And I
For
love
you
weird
to say
shit.
that, Ben, is like, that's interesting because you listen to everything. You listen to the weirdest shit. From
Yeah, I
every
love
genre.
weird
Like,
music.
you listen to like Frank Zappa, and you have like a case full of DVDs from like Grateful Dead shows
Yeah.
somebody meticulously recorded or remastered. Like, who does that? You're a maniac. So for
Yeah.
you to say that something was weird is kind of it's exciting.
Well, I mean, so real quick, and then I'll get to you, Dion. Why is it weird, or why did it tickle my weird bone?
Why did it tickle his weird button?
It tickled my weird. It pressed my weird button, but it set something off in my head. I was like, my ears perked up because, right, my ignorance thought I was gonna get the Fiona Apple that came out in '96, to which I listened to Tidal again this week. By the way, I don't love it. I don't love it. It's not my thing. I didn't listen to the other stuff. I just wanted to refamiliarize myself with what I once didn't love, just so I could. Did I grow? Did I? It's still not really my thing. It's okay. But this music is not. There is no attempt to be pop in any way. Even on songs that have pop tendencies on this album that that I do see as possible radio hits. I don't know. I don't listen to the fucking radio. I have no idea if any of these songs have been played over the radio. The only time I hear the radio is when someone else is listening to it in like a bodega or like this kid. There's this kid at my office who shall remain nameless because I think he might listen to this show, but he knows who he is. He has to work with like music playing in the background, but it's never music that he cares about. He just puts on the top songs of our time and they play over and over and over all day. And I literally come up to him every once in a while. I'm like, do you like this? He's like, I don't know. He goes, I don't know. Like, I just need, I hate silence. I'm like, well, I hate silence too, but not as much as I hate this. and we laugh, we get into it. I made him a playlist of all weird, like just weird shit. I was like, just open your mind. I made him a playlist on Spotify called Open Your Mind, right? It has Prince on it. Aww. It has
Funny, that's really sweet.
Shuggy Otis on it. It has some Dead, some dope underground. I put Czarface on it. I put all this shit. I was like, just open your mind. You know what he said? He put it on. I put it on at the office, and a few songs in, like 3 songs in, he's like, "Yeah, I don't like this stuff. It's like weird." I'm like, "All right, man.
It's making me feel things I don't want to feel." Yeah.
Well, so which brings me back to this album. This album challenges anyone who thinks they're gonna listen to something that sounds like everything else. It sounds completely unique. The recording process was like, when I looked into it. Yeah. It was mostly recorded in and throughout her home. She's using kitchen instruments for percussion. The song structures are not just, verse, chorus, chord progressions you've heard a million times, So for that, I commend this album. Also, I'm very surprised because this album was a critical darling. It got a 10 out of 10 on Pitchfork, I think. Is it Pitchfork? I don't know. So I was looking up reviews. Someone gave it a 10 out of 10. Every review was positive, right? The fact that an album this weird got that much critical acclaim gives me hope. If you listen to the popular music of our time, everything in every genre sounds so clicked in to like a digitized format. Whether or not instruments are present in the recording of the music, everything is so quantized and digitized and just on the nose. Here's the verse, here's the chorus. The drum beats are literally made by a computer that has no human element of flaw or give and take outside the beat. Everything is just so sterile. And this album is anything but. It's wild. It's wild. And that I love that part of the experience. Did I love every song on the album? No. But there were songs I absolutely adored.
There were some gems. There were actually some gems there.
Yeah. Dion, talk to me about your experience. How, were you as prejudice, let's put it, as I was before you, or did you hear the album before me?
So that's what I was gonna say. I came with this a slightly different sort of path from you. I heard this album when it came out. This album came out like a month into quarantine, I think. And I think Fiona Apple, like, she doesn't release album, like, it's rare, right? Like, since '97, since her first album, this is like her fifth album, I think, since then. So it was highly anticipated. It was beginning of quarantine, where people were still, like, bored / scared / didn't know what to do. So kind of came out at the perfect time. And I listened to it at the time because I was like you, Ben. Like, I never, consider myself a fan of Fiona Apple's, but I remember when she first came out, and I remember having that thought. It's like, oh wow, this chick has a really good voice. She's a little bit crazy, and she's gotten herself into some interesting sort of like tabloid fodder back then. But she has a good voice, so I always kind of like, I always came back to that. Almost similar to the way I can look at Christina Aguilera, right? It's like, you're a pop star, like you're known for, like, certain things, but at the end of the day, you still do have a tremendous voice. So if you have to get, if you have to like lean on something, like, at least you can lean on that, lean on the talent.
I love Christina.
Yeah, no, she's great. I mean, she's one of those people where it's like, at the time where she's surrounded by like Britney and Jessica Simpson, all these people who are like, they're attractive, like, people, but Britney and Jessica Simpson don't have the greatest voice. Christina's voice was worlds better than all of them, but she still was in that same kind of like, trajectory as them.
Right.
Anyway,
she was marketed the same way.
Yeah,
marketed the same exact way, but her voice was spectacular. And it's similar. I mean, not that Fiona Apple was marketed the same way. She definitely like flew her own path. But in a certain ways, like Gary said, like, she was, like, she did have some pop stardom at the time. So I say all that to say that, like, I went into this with that mentality of that thinking of who Fiona Apple was. I heard the album already at the beginning of quarantine, so I just took this as a time to sort of really, like, dive deeper into it. But I will say, the first time I heard the album, I liked it. I actually liked it. Like, when I first heard it back in April, again, wasn't, the genre isn't my cup of tea. I don't listen to this kind of music every day at all. But I do remember liking it in general. I like the music of it. I like the sort of weirdness. You could definitely tell. Like, I didn't even need to look up the fact that she recorded it in her house to know that this was like. I mean, look, similar to this podcast, it's do it yourself, right? Like, a lot of the vibe of this album was very much do it yourself. And like, talking with that imperfection that you were saying, Ben, I mean, aside from hearing it in the instrumentation and the composition of it, literally there are moments, like tiny moments in this album where I don't know if you can gather, where there's fuck ups. And she rides with the fuck ups, and like, you don't. That's so rare in music, where it's like because it's something so easy to cut out. Like, there's a moment, like, I think in the last track, where she goes like, oh fuck, oh shit, clearly she messed up.
She keeps going.
That's so easy.
Yeah,
she keeps going, and as a person who, like, I've doing this podcast, I've delved doing more into editing and specifically audio editing. To cut something like that out is completely easy. It's just really easy to do, and like re-record that track. But she didn't. She wanted to keep that imperfection in. I think that was I know that was by design, to like go off of the rest of the theme of this album.
Yeah, it's part of the charm of her music. And Dion, I had a very different experience, I guess, than you. I think you had a much more open mind than I did heading into. Even though I suggested that we have this adventure together, for me it was a real fight between. It's like a tug of war between enjoying what's great about what I'm hearing and I don't care, right? And I don't care was very strong here, right? Like, from my perspective, like, there were songs on here like Under the Table where she's like describing some kind of like minute or dynamics of a relationship that she had, and like listening to it, and I'm thinking, I don't care, right? It just over and over in my mind a little bit, right? Like kind of next, because like I don't care about this, right? It's about being open to new shit and to other people's problems. OPP, right? Other people's problems, and it's not so much OPP when you're listening to like Nas or Busta Rhymes or any of the artists that we were talking about that are talking about some like crime shit or society's like desperate shortfalls in society. These are universal problems that everybody's like, oh, this is my problem too. This isn't OPP. This album was a lot of OPP. It was a lot of other people's problems, and like, what I really had to fall in love with was the style in which Fiona Apple recorded this album, and just like the composition of her music, right? To your point,
Totally.
Dion, like it's those kind of imperfections, and the fact that a lot of these seem like maybe first or second takes of something that felt really organic and had energy behind it. Like that comes across a lot, and that's what kind of hooked me.
There's one song in particular that I know, just from looking it up, I know was done in one take. I'll get it, and I'll bring it up in just a minute. But I know it was done in one take, and that was part of the thing that sort of like, you know, got my mindset to realizing, all right, yeah, this really is like a sort of a crudely done album. But I don't mean that in a negative way. Like it was like it's still well done, and also Gary. I definitely had those moments too. I didn't love this album. I enjoyed it. I liked it. Like I said, I really liked it when I first listened to it. Giving it more of a deep dive, I definitely, there's definitely some moments where I'm like, okay, this is like clearly a specific issue that like I'm not saying what you have to sing about and what you can't sing about. Like it's your album talking about Fiona Apple. It's your album. You do whatever you want. But like you said, Gary, like there's just certain things that are just like, this doesn't really click with me, but the music sounds good and it still sounds kind of cool.
Who's listening to who cares about this is like, well, a thought that went through my mind. Like, I'm thinking, oh, so this is what chicks listen to, right? It was like maybe like a thought that went through my head on first listen before I really understood what's brilliant about this and how I could relate to it.
So this idea of, you know, not overproducing this album and the elements of this album that make some songs so special, I also think kind of produced some songs that I can't stand. And I'll do my best to keep the hatred. I'm not gonna hate. I'm not gonna hate, but I will say some songs really I will skip every time this album ever comes on again if I have the opportunity to.
What's the first one?
There's a few of those songs, but the song Relay, it's creative and it's wild and it's the farthest thing from pop music, but like the chorus is so strange and it's almost like on like I don't know what it's like world music in terms of its I don't know what continent, but it's like it
World
is not
music.
It is not American pop music or American R&B music or rock or hip hop. It is a rhythm that is unlike anything else she's done, and it's almost like Asian or something. I don't know.
Well, that part in that song Relay, like you talking about the drum, like it's like a drum line. Like it's like a
and the way she sings that chorus, it's like a chant, and it's weird.
Yeah,
and I don't love it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then so that's the chorus, and then the verses are a completely different vibe, and I don't love that either. And it's a whole mishmash of sounds that sound sloppy and like a song I never want to hear again, and that's okay. I think other people would look at it as genius, and you know, to each their own. But so the looseness to which the creative process was, I'm not sure if she had a producer. I didn't really look it up, but this seems almost like let's just see where this goes and throw something at the wall and see how it splatters. And like some of it splattered beautifully, and some of it I think took a lot more writing and craft than others. And this is one of those songs that I was like, man, this could have been cut. Like this was not great. There's a few other songs that kind of lack melody, or a strong melody. Whereas songs such as Ladies, Shamika, I love Shamika.
Shamika's great.
Under the Table I thought was interesting too, Gary. You know, I did not. You have to be comfortable with the attitude that she has, and this I know is something she carries throughout her music, is the strong woman. She will not be your bitch. She's not going to be anyone's bitch. She's not going to be is subservient the word?
Subservient.
Yeah.
You know, she's not going to be that, you know, the model, the quote unquote like old American view of what a woman should be. She's her own strong woman, but sometimes that like kick me under the table, I won't shut up. Like sometimes you're being rude. Why don't you know? That's what I thought is like. What if you're being an asshole? I should kick you. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Relationships should have a give and take. And if you're popping off at the mouth, I expect you, if I kick you under the table, to be like, all right, maybe I'm going a little too far here.
And the saying goes both ways too. Like,
yeah, of course. I've been kicked so many times.
Like I think the kick under the table is by itself like kind of insulting, you know, like to get kicked under the table when you're saying something that's like not polite or off topic.
Yeah,
like, I do this a lot. I go on a lot of tangents. Like I'm happier when somebody's like challenges me above the table.
Gary, I wish I could kick you sometimes, but you're upstate.
I'm too far away. But now you get to, you could challenge me more directly with like, hey, this bullshit you're saying, it's not good.
Right. Right.
But on this topic of tinkering, right? Like I loved that about this album and about her work in general, but I think especially in this album, like she's clearly comfortable as a musician, and like she doesn't need any of the trappings of what a pop star or rock star needs. She's just like, give me some kitchen fucking utensils and I'm gonna make some really great music in my house right now with my guitar and basic instruments and like random noises.
Totally.
So following some familiar songwriting techniques is what she's doing, but she's going off trail pretty often. And many of those experiments, when she goes off trail and uses her voice in a different way or doesn't follow the kind of pattern that you would expect with her voice, I found really deeply touching. There were a couple of those moments on this album that just gave me serious goosebumps. Like, I guess let me ask you guys, like, what happens to you when a song gives you goosebumps?
Okay, that's a good question. You go first, Dion. I got to collect my thoughts.
I could go first if you guys want to.
Go first.
I have a note about this, but like for me, it's like chills, right? I get it like on my arms and like I get it across my back, and like I even like become like there's like a flush of sweat even potentially, right? Sometimes it makes me emotional. Like it'll be like an unexpected turn of phrase or the way that a singer will use her vocals, right? Like the song Rack of His has a lot of that. That was an unexpected listening experience.
I love that song, Gary. And I had a few of those unexpected moments too in it. But one thing on every listen that sticks out is when she's talking about the Rack of His. Like she's talking about like falling in love with a guy who's like a rock star or like who plays music at least. And like the rack she's talking about is a rack of guitars, and like the line like they don't know what that is, but I get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, whoa, that's badass. You know what I mean? Like I really I love that use of imagery and of subject matter. Like and she's great at telling, there's no like overarching specific narratives, but she paints a good picture and you know exactly what she's talking about when she's singing. So what were the unexpected things in that song that really gave you chills?
One is like the Rack of His, just like what it was referring to, and the fact that the song was about her talking about a musician who she had a romantic kind of connection to. In
and out of love, yeah.
Yeah. And just like the fact that I think when we were talking on GChat, like earlier when we first started listening to this, and I wanted to see if you guys were like totally hating me or not. But you were both listening to it, and what came up was that she kind of raps in some places on this album, right? So like her use of her vocals was interesting too.
She definitely spits on some tracks in a way that a non-rapper would spit, but like I equate it, and it sounds nothing like this band because I fucking hate this band. Imagine Dragons.
Oh no, I thought you were gonna say like Hamilton or something.
No, I liked Hamilton. Hamilton's
great. Hamilton's fucking great.
But no, I'm talking about like, so Imagine Dragons. They're like to me they're a joke. They're like the one rock group left in the rock music category on the radio, and they're like not even rock music, but they have this like way of singing melodically but spitting, adding the rap element to their singing, And that's what she does, but not. It doesn't sound like an Imagine Dragons songs, but some of her flow patterns are similar to the way I've heard some horrible music by Imagine Dragons. It's music appreciation, so trust me, there will be no Imagine Dragons albums on our show.
Well, if you want to throw one in,
Gary,
just
don't
for
do
a
it.
hate, for a hate,
Yeah.
we'll do a hate week.
Gary, I see those gears turning. I see those gears turning in your fucking head. Don't
do it, man. Don't do it, man.
Here's what I liked about this, about Rack of His, and why it kind of had that effect on me. Like the way she's speaking, right, in the chorus was just totally unexpected. It's like you're listening to a nursery rhyme, and like, again, Who Cares kicks in really strong until like just enjoying the composition of it and how unexpected it was. Forget what, even setting aside the content and what it is that she's talking about. Just the sound of the chorus. Check out that Rack of His. Look at that row of guitar necks. Line up like eager fillies, outstretched like legs of Rockettes. Like just kind of going through it. It
dope.
sounds really good.
It's very poetic.
Yeah, so that kind of did it for me.
Well, so the initial question you asked, Gary, is like, what is it like when you get chills listening to music? And I think that the sub question should be, what gives you chills, right? I think that's an important thing to observe because it's different for everybody, right?
That's right.
What gives me chills could give you diarrhea. Like
Often.
There are bands that people there are artists that people just love, and I'm talking about down the line that I loathe, that don't give me chills, that make me angry when I listen to them. I am someone, right? And I think this leads into my snobbiness. I have an obsessive mind. I really do. I have an addictive personality, an obsessive mind, and I also, I react strongly to auditory stimulation. Is auditory the word?
Sure.
It is today. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to sound like
I think it is.
like an idiot.
I'm pretty sure you're right, Benny.
I do have strong emotional and physical reactions to tones and music. I really do. So when I hear the thing, whether it be in hip hop, in rock, in jazz, in funk, in some old country songs, some bluegrass, like whatever that thing is, I like my chills are both physical and emotional. Like I become elated when the right note hits, or when I am pleasantly surprised, right? And that happened several times on this album. The more melodic songs, right? I was most impressed by. So clearly this album wasn't overproduced, and a lot of these sketches and so it's not like she went in and erased some of the sketchy lines and inked it perfectly. There are sketchy lines, but some of the compositions are expertly executed and unique. So I think about songs like Shamika, with all that wild piano and and then the quick stops, bum bum bum. Shamika said I had potential, bum bum bum.
It's like theatrical.
It's very dynamic, right?
Yeah.
The dynamics are lost, just shot in popular music these days. There was a time, I'd say the last time we had it, where like the unexpected could really happen often on popular music was the mid 90s. In like there was this revolution like that kind of ended with the Foo Fighters, of like rock music, that where like the record companies didn't know what they had. They just knew they had it and they put them out there, and like eventually everything became very cookie cutter after that. But there was dynamics in those songs. There was shifts. There was unique chord progressions and unique statements happening in the mid 90s with rock music.
And just sometimes improvised moments, right? Just a moment, an unplanned moment that ended up epitomizing kind of what it is that the musician was trying to do.
Definitely. In that music and in this. And so like one thing I read about this album is, and I'll get back to what I was talking about, but this is a tangent I'd like to address. I read in an interview that a lot of these songs were just recorded, and like the meat and potatoes of these songs were recorded. And when she went down into the editing room, she said, like, how can I edit this? Because it's so wild, because kitchen pots and pans were used as percussive textures, and there's a lot of percussive, like, one thing that jumps out at me at this album is that, like, even in the low points you hear little nicks and cuts and bangs on, like, percussion, which keeps it interesting and keeps the it keeps it bubbling. You know what I mean? It's anything but sterile. So, like, she couldn't really cut it down into concise pop because it just wasn't. It was just these broad strokes of music. So the things that gave me chills were the dynamic shifts and the chord changes. Some of it almost sounded like, I've been listening to a lot of Queen this past year. Like, I fell in love with Queen. Like, beyond their hits, I started to, like, listen to all their albums. Like, I fucking love them. Like, they're just everything I love about music. Vocals, orchestration, commitment to like a fine product. And so, like, some of her more theatrical and wild shifts in chords and stuff reminded me of, like, Freddie Mercury with a piano, really loved that. I think Ladies just was fucking beautiful, like a beautiful song. I thought that even Kick Me Under the Table, I didn't love the subject matter. I also felt like, all right, but the shift from the verse to the chorus is very dramatic, right? Like, it goes from one vibe and then a dramatic shift into another vibe that works very well. I thought Cosmonauts was a beautiful song. I really, really loved that song. So there's a lot here to like. There's a lot, the songs that I'm not mentioning are for a reason. They almost irritated me, some of these songs. And I don't really want to get into why, but some of it is just like, okay, I get it. There's pots and pans, and you don't want this to have structure. But sometimes that hurts. Sometimes those sketches should be left in the sketch pad. That's how I felt. No diss to her, because I think some of the best songs I've heard in a while are on this album. So, like,
I wish more artists would do, like artists that we enjoy that have been making music for decades would do this more often, where they would just kind of, without being too self-conscious about it, just put out something that has a bunch of experiments in it, that has a bunch of, like, offshoots and, like, or off-trail kind of experiences, as the,
You know who does that, Gary?
Think about it.
Interestingly enough, Fish. It's almost like each time they get into the studio, they kind of throw out the rule book and they're just like, what could we do different? None of their albums really, their last album actually is pretty true to form, but most of their albums, they sound nothing like they do live. Like, they're literally so far removed from the live Fish experience that they do kind of each album is a sketchbook, it feels. You know what I mean? So that's why, but that's also why they have a very uneven catalog.
An analog for this, for me, and I don't know if you guys got this too, but, like, feel free to just beat the hell out of this, because I might be totally wrong. But I thought of Fiona Apple's work similar to the way I think of, like, De La Soul.
Oh my God.
Like, that's the analog for me. Like, Fiona Apple's, this was like the grind date versus, like, her earlier stuff was like Stakes is High. You know what I mean? It's like,
I don't.
That's.
I think I kind of get it, Gary. Like, this is, like, as weird as Fiona Apple used to be. Like, this is, like, even kind of, like, sort of off the cuff and weird for her. And I, in a good way. Like, her previous albums, even though she, like, kind of, tried to project that kind of, like, independent, like, person, like we talked about, like that, like, different kind of pop star. At the end of the day, she still was marketed as a pop star. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
right.
So you're saying, like, this, like, because Grind Date was a little, Grind Date was great, but it wasn't.
I'd say it was one of their, it was one of their poppiest albums.
It definitely was. So
it was like an attempt to kind of remove themselves from the underground. It felt at times.
Yeah, it was really, really produced. So I guess, you know what? Yeah, just maybe it doesn't work very well.
No, but
I'm grasping, man. Like I'm grasping because I really am in some ways in an unexplored territory for me musically. You know, in terms of like what I like to listen to, and I'm trying to relate it back to the stuff I'm comfortable with. You know.
Well, why don't we take that one further, right? So like I look at this more like, so you and I, Gary, have a share. I don't really listen to them anymore, but you and I used to love the Dave Matthews Band.
Sure.
Right? So I look at this as like, if you listen to the Big Whiskey album from a few years, what was it, 2009, and the albums that came out, they're a little more wild, and a little more uncontained, and a little less like the Dave we knew from back then. And then he also, I'd say every few years, he went through a bit of a, experimentation in his sound, and he made a few albums that the reason I fell out of love with his music is because there was a few years where he released some shit that I thought was garbage, and I don't know, maybe something more along those lines.
Yeah, man, I think that with Dave Matthews Band, I felt like when I stopped listening to them was when their stuff started feeling really, in my opinion, overproduced. It started like they wanted to make some very highly produced stuff that was like perfect, and I just kind of wish, and I still wish, I want the Fetch the Bolt Cutters, version of like a Dave Matthews solo.
Well, I think that exists.
Like something that's like really like underproduced, right? Like something that's a little ugly.
That's why I love, by the way, Gary, like what you love about this album is why I love live recordings of bands. Like a band who could fucking do it live is because no matter how good that band is, throughout the night there are always imperfections. There's always going to be the human element in play. And so I you guys know this. Most of my favorite bands, I prefer to listen to them live, like a show, and they choose the set list, and I'm there to witness it or listen to it, because of all the things that maybe you love about this, like because like the unexpected happens live, things that aren't necessarily, locked into the formula. I don't know.
Yeah, magic. The magic can happen.
We started talking about a little bit of the percussion in some of the album, some of the songs here.
Yes.
The percussion is actually, if you look through the whole album, is a pretty important factor in like half the songs in this album. Let's see, Relay that we talked about, like to me that was like, I actually love that those like sort of drum interludes, because it reminded me of just like marching band drum solos, or drum lines rather, like marching band drum lines, and I just thought it was kind of cool. Like it lent itself to like a cool sort of musical interlude for the song. That's kind of like the only parts of that song I really liked.
I like the whole song drum set for exactly that reason, right? Just drum like the simple percussion. It's just it's good. It's like that's what I love.
The drummer in her band, right? So I think like if I don't know for sure, because again I am not familiar with her work. I've never seen or heard a live recording of her. I'm going in here blind, but I would have to guess that the percussion in this album was so strong, and like literally probably my favorite part of the instrumentation. Same here. The percussion in this album.
Absolutely.
And I have to imagine her drummer is sick. Like I think it was just her and the bassist banging on pots and pans. I don't think it would come out the same. I think there's no such thing as an amazing band with a shitty drummer. I think like the drummer is the most important part of every single band, because if the rhythm isn't locked in and isn't like really interesting, and if it's a little sloppy or not great, the music gets hurt quicker than any other instrument lacking. Drummer is so important, and I think the drummer did an incredible. I remember before I even realized that pots and pans were being banged on, and that how hands slapping, clapping, walls being banged on. Before that all became obvious to me, the drum tracks where there's actual acoustic drums stood out to me. Like, whoa, like this is great drumming, like really, really strong.
Same here.
Yeah, didn't it feel like it being in a room with live music?
Yes.
When you hear it come
It
across
felt-
on this album?
It felt like a circle. It felt like I was
alive.
in a circle of people
Yeah.
playing like hippie music, basically. And I don't mean that in a negative way,
Yeah,
but
no.
like it's, you know,
It felt live. It felt lived in. You know what I mean? That I
Yeah.
love that about. I loved that element. You know, more music should sound lived in and less like, 5 times removed from what it would sound like if they were actually playing it in front of you.
Holy
you know?
shit, Ben! You just summarized my heart.
I think that's why I like the Roots so much, by the way, because especially
Yeah.
their older albums, like if you listen to Organics and Do You Want More and Illadelph Half-Life, those albums sound lived in. They sound like a band is playing and a dude is rapping. You know what I mean? Like that's like a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Go like what the song For Her, which is another one of my favorites on the album. It like sort of perfectly brings all that together because it starts off with literally a sigh and then someone clapping and then voices come in.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of cymbal. It's like 3 cymbal crashes or something like that. But it starts off really simplistic, but it ends up being something bigger. And what makes it sort of bigger are the actual the live drumming, which lends itself to your point, Ben, about the drummer having to be pretty fucking good. Because that's another one of those songs where like I pointed that out. I was like, oh, the drum interludes in this song too are really dope. She actually said, Fiona.
Sorry. Go ahead.
She said in terms of this song and like the final result of the song, she said, I want primary colors, I don't want any half measures when talking about the song. And I thought that was really interesting because like I don't know if it was like if it was Inception, if this thought was planted in my head, but like having listened to that song again with all the different voices that come on, like all I think is just like, oh shit, it like in your face. Like I guess like I wouldn't have thought of the term primary colors, but having now heard that that's what she was going for, listening to that song again, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is kind of what I'm thinking of, just like sort of bright, like in your face, like here's what this song is. It's like all these vocals sort of getting in your head, and meanwhile, it's still a pretty simple like it's pretty simple music in the background, right? Like I said, it's like hands clapping, a couple cymbals, and a drum beat. But like her like sort of recording like the different like sort of pitches in the vocals, like that's all her. Like it sounds like multiple voices, but it's all her. But it still gives you that feel of like I'm visualizing like a circle of people. I'm 3 people singing, 1 person with bongos, 1 person with like with the pots and pans, all in a circle, like sitting on fucking bean bags and tapestries and shit like strung about. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from this song. Right, exactly. Yeah. But that's kind of what the song does. Like it takes that like sort of do-it-yourself like sort of elements and adds in a professional drumming and drum line or whatever, mixed in with her beautiful voice, and you have this song For Her, which by the way, it was written shortly after the Kavanaugh nomination, which is why like if you listen to like the lyrics, like it's pretty powerful. Like and the song Ladies too, so, like similar, like getting like like women to sort of band together and like sort of speak up and everything. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's a subtle but non-subtle ending to this song that like sort of took me aback. Where the lyrics, the end of the lyrics, it goes, all right, she goes into singing Good Morning, the song from Sound of Music, right?
Okay.
She goes, good morning. Is that Sound of Music or is it Mary Poppins? It might be Mary Poppins. Kate would know. But,
okay.
Which says, good morning. And then the line that knocks me off my feet, she goes, you raped me in the same bed your daughters were born in. And then continues going, good morning. It's like,
wow.
holy shit. That. So that's what ties it around to like I guess like the whole Kavanaugh thing. It's like and that goes to the whole the Me Too movement is about women finally starting to speak up and like actually say something. Like clearly this is a person that's talking about like their husband or their living boyfriend or whatever, someone they have a kid with, and she's like putting him on a blast like remember that one time where you raped me in the bed, that our daughter was born in, you're fucked up and I'm gonna call you out on that shit. Up until that point the whole the song was kind of, I mean, at least on the surface, kind of like a light, again, like sort of bringing women together. And, again, it was like, it was born out of like, a negative thing. Again, the Kavanaugh nomination, which stirred up a lot of women, rightfully so. but yeah, it really doesn't get into that sort of part of the like the theme that it's going for until that line, and I'm like, and it really makes me sort of re-listen to the song again. Whatever. The point is, I'm going on a tangent, but I guess that's why I'm saying like this is one of my favorite songs of the album, because like musically it's there. It encapsulates everything I think Fiona was trying to go for, both again like in composition and in music, but also in theme, and like ending with that like sort of gut punch of a line.
And it has that gave it the kind of rewind quality that I think you love about music in general.
Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely, and I think those elements of her attitude are so awesome. Like those I don't know how else to put it besides simply saying the Me Too themed parts of her lyrics are so welcome. Like that's why the songs similar to back to like that whole I don't care about Under the Table is because like being just bitter in like an unhealthy or like in a relationship where maybe someone is asking you to be quiet, or I didn't really get the point of Under the Table, but I do get the point of lyrics like that, and of I when I listen every time I put this album on so far, when Ladies comes on, I get the chills. I go, oh yes, like it's a great song. Sing it,
ladies,
sing
ladies,
it.
Ladies.
Yeah,
and just you know what it does. Ladies. You know what it kind of does. Just on a tangent, Ben. I know you're going off something. I'll let you finish, but real quick. She does this earlier with the rack like fuck. What's the name of the song? Rack like his.
Rack of his.
Rack of his. Where like the way she does the chorus for Ladies and the title of Rack of His both do something where it's like it flips something that men often do the women, right? Like Rack of His, like you, of course, it's a very obvious what Rack of His is doing. It's flipping that notion of like, oh, you look at that Rack of Hers, like no, look at this Rack of His. Same thing with the ladies. Like how often do like like when we were younger, it's like ladies. Like how many the cliche like like ladies man do character whatever. Like literally that's what they would come into the scene saying ladies. And her chorus, maybe I'm being a little too detailed in this. I don't know, but I think she was going for this, where the chorus is like her flipping it and saying ladies, but she's not trying to be offensive. She's trying to like gather people and
it's an empowerment. Call not call to arms, but call to empowerment. It's a beautiful sentiment. What I was getting at before is I think it's like we talked about percussion, we talked about how awesome I think it's like I personally think it's always important to talk about instrumentation, and for that reason I want to just call out who played drums as I see here. Amy Aileen Wood. If I pronounced that wrong, I apologize. She is the drummer for the album. Every other human on this album added to the percussion, claps, hums, stomps. Like literally the bassist is credited for the stomps. So like,
makes sense.
There's a lot more to it, but Amy, God bless you. You are fucking awesome. Really the backbone of the music, I thought, was the drums.
And by the way, I don't know if you guys read into this, but that song "Drum Set." Do you know what it's about? The actual.
Yes, actually, this is one
go
of the
Gary,
few things
go
that I
ahead.
did get into a little bit. But no, I mean, I understand that the impetus for the song was a misunderstanding between her and her band, in that they
specifically the drummer.
Exactly. So Dion, tell this story.
So it's quick. It's like Fiona, she had just gotten broken up with, I don't know if it was a mutual breakup or if her boyfriend broke up with her, but she was in this mindset of like, I mean, look, we've all been there, whether it's for a breakup or anything else that's like sort of negative in our life. Like when something like that happens, you suddenly become very insecure about the things that have to do with that. So she became very insecure about all her relationships once her boyfriend broke up with her, and the lyrics are literally saying like, why did you take the drum set away? I forget the exact lyrics, but what happened is like her and a band were practicing. The drummer took the drum set because she had another gig. It happens,
But he left the rug.
Musicians,
but she left the rug.
Left the rug. But she interpreted that as, oh well, if my boyfriend just broke up with me, then that means that I'm unwanted, and all my friends and all the people I love are breaking up with me now. So she was in a fragile state of mind. She realized later on how I don't want to say ridiculous because she was going through something, but how like she realized how wrong it was and how it's just like her getting in her own head. But like literally, the song is about a voicemail or a phone call she made to the drummer, basically like freaking out, saying like, "Why'd you take the drums? Like, are we breaking up too now? Like, what the hell? You left the rug? Like, it's screaming at me. Like again, like and at the end of the day, she realizes, oh wait, no, she just took it for another gig. I'm just being crazy. But it goes into like sort of what Fiona Apple at the front, even from the beginning, is known for, is like talking about her relationships in kind of a weird, strange way. And this is one. Like at the end of the day, even though this is a song about her drummer taking the drum set, really it's a song about her breaking up with a boyfriend. And this is an event that's an extension of that in her own head. In reality, the two things are very separated, but like it's what the human brain does.
Hell yeah.
Interesting.
It's funny, man. Like I don't usually, unless I'm very familiar with the artist, I don't usually think about what provoked the artist to, or what informed the artist's energy. I just kind of react to the product that I'm listening to. And it's an interesting way to look at it. I never really put that together. And
I'm just connecting those dots right now as we're talking.
Yeah.
Part of it. Gary, you presented a question that throughout this whole episode I kind of answered, but like I love it, and I think it should be like brought up in so many other episodes that we do. It's like, what is it that gives us chills? You know what I mean? What is it about? Like, why does something give Dion chills and not me? And why do I go wild for something that makes you, Gary, go, I don't know, turn that down? You know what I mean? Like, what is
I'll
it
listen
about?
to that in 10 years, Ben. Thanks.
Yeah. But I think that's such a cool question, man. Like, Dion, we haven't really heard your take on it, so like, I'd like to elaborate too. But what is it in music, at least, that really sparks you and gives you chills?
I mean, it's a few different things, right? Like in hip hop specifically, if I hear a line that like we always bring up, and Gary, you just did 5 minutes ago, like those rewind lines or those rewind songs. Like when I hear those lines, especially the first time I hear it, and I wait, what did I just hear again? I replay it again, and that's when I get the chills. Like, holy shit, how did he or she just do that? Like just make 2 bars into a fucking masterpiece. Like that something like that hits me. I guess. There's something we talked about it before, but there's something about like the unexpected nature of something. Like when you're thinking a song veers one way and it pivots to something else, and it just like, I don't know. I guess this album does do that a lot.
Would you call it cleverness, even if it's not in the lyrics?
Yeah.
Cleverness can exist in instrumentation.
Oh, 100%.
Of course.
100%. Yeah.
You have an example of that, Gary, in this?
Oh yeah. Well, for instance, like. In the song Shamika, the rolling piano that's like super strong and how that sounds really good, and then it just falls off a cliff into Fiona, whisper singing, about her childhood acquaintance, right? Who thought she had potential as a badass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's so like that cleverness that you're talking about, Gary, that's what I was referring to in dynamics. Like why is like not why, bad statement, but so much music lacks that cleverness or those dynamics. Like so much of what we're blasted with is just this just blanket of sound that is not intended to do what those stops in that song does. That's what that does is you're on a certain energy wavelength, and then several loud thumps and a change in vocal delivery, all of a sudden you go, whoa, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And that is my favorite thing in music. You know what I mean? My favorite bands in the world all share that quality, right? So I'm talking about bands like Wilco, bands like God Street Wine and Fish and the Grateful Dead and Pink Floyd and Steely Dan. They all have dynamic shifts in songs where, like, if you never heard the song, you don't know what's around the corner, right? And some of the best ones, they don't know what's around the corner when they're playing it live, and the dynamics happen right in front of you. But like, I can't stand music that just is droning and like designed to keep you hypnotized. And that's what I think most pop music is at this point. It's like, let's not fuck with the program. They're tuning into this sound and this chord progression and this style of singing, so don't do anything different. I remember when, sorry, now I'm going to go on my haterade for a minute. I apologize.
And dude, I'm just picturing like somebody's nutsack talking as you're making that voice.
Thank you. That was my nutsack voice. But I remember when the world was discovering Ed Sheeran, and they go, oh my god, he writes his own songs, right? And I'm like, I wouldn't want to say I wrote those songs. Those are bad songs. You know what I mean? I'm in love with The Shape of You. That is like just a few tones over and over and over again, and the chorus is at the same fucking chord progression as the verse, and it's just the most simple bullshit lyrics, bullshit song, and like the fact that he got notoriety because he wrote it. Like, wow, great, you wrote that. Like, so uninteresting. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about that. You know, like so much of what I hear when I'm in the bodega and when that kid in my office is playing that music, it's just so uninteresting that like I feel like I know this makes me sound like such a snobby douche, but because my mind and my ears have experienced clever music, I feel insulted by that shit. Like, I'm like, this is irritatingly bad. It's bad music. Like, I think Louis Armstrong said it. There's only two types of music, good and bad. That shit falls in the bad category for me. And I know it's all in the eye of, whoever. Some people don't want to listen to something that doesn't sound like everything else because they're afraid to, or because they're comfortable with what they know. But that cleverness that Gary was alluding to is why I fucking love the experience of this album. Am I going to put this album on all the time? No. But there are certain songs that I think I'm going to add to some of my playlists because they're fucking awesome and surprising. And the gift is in the listening and in the paying attention. I always talk about that. If you're listening to a song and if you actively pay attention to it and you pick it apart and all you're left with is air, then that song sucks.
Yeah. Ben, when I listen to you talk about your musical kind of expertise, you know what it takes me back to?
It's
or your
snobbery.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I think of it as expertise. I trust you when it comes to music history and recommending things that expand my mind. You've done it countless times. But I think of I'm thinking back to Watchmen, the comic book, where at the end, Dr. Manhattan is explaining his where he's coming from, right? He says, I have walked across the surface of the sun. I have witnessed events so tiny and so fast that they could hardly be said to have occurred at all.
Oh my God.
The world's smartest man poses to me no more threat than the world's smartest termite.
I love that. That's such a
I'll take it.
Of that.
You know what, Gary? I will take it. I am Dr. Manhattan when it comes to taste in music.
Fuck yeah.
No, I'm an asshole. Listen, I get it, right? Like, I would want to punch me in the face if I heard me talking, but I feel so strongly about it. I am so... It's my... I could barely play a note. I started taking bass lessons. I am so bad at playing music. Let's be clear. I'm not an expert. I'm a fucking fan. You know what I mean? I am a big fan of great music, but it affects me so deeply that I literally become physically ill when I hear music I don't like. And I know that's stupid. If I could change that, I would. It's just who I am. So that's why, Gary, bringing it back to what I said right in the beginning, man. I had my closed mind bashed open with a baseball bat. In this experience in a good way.
Awesome.
I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to listen to these songs, particularly the ones I highlighted over and over again. They're great. They're fucking great. So pleasantly surprised. Yeah. Fuck nice. Yeah, Gary.
Yeah, I just want to say this. You love me. That's what I have to say.
I love you, man.
Love
You have potential.
You definitely have potential. Pretty good.
Are we in? Did we? Is there something that we missed?
No, I think we're good. We could do our last licks.
Yeah, that thing I just sang back to you guys. At first, I thought that was the most obnoxious, stupid thing I ever heard. But then I thought it was funny, and then I really enjoyed the rest of the album. Yeah, this was a mind expansion exercise for me, and I think I not having a lot to work with, I was trying to draw parallels to other music that I know, and trying to just really place this in context and really expand my mind that way, right? Just kind of structure my thoughts, and it was hard for me. This was different. I really I enjoyed going down this rabbit hole with you guys.
Nice.
Nice.
And as did I. Like I said, I mean, going into this slightly different from Ben. I'd heard the album before at the beginning, but I still was. I don't want to say pleasantly surprised because I had heard it before, but like, yeah, doing a little dive into it, it's like, yeah, it had some themes that I didn't realize were there. Obviously, because I didn't give it like a full listen until this these past couple of weeks. But I did enjoy it, and like I think similar to what Ben said, like there's definitely at least a few songs that I will be listening to like on the regular. I mean, like again, that song "Ladies," "Cosmonauts," which we brought up briefly before, is also great. It was actually originally written for the soundtrack of "This Is 40." Judd Apatow. They had cut it because I guess I kind of disagree, but they thought like she herself struggled with writing a song about monogamy because she just doesn't believe as much in monogamy as the average person, which is totally fine, I guess. But I guess the themes of the song weren't quite up to what I could be wrong in this as to why they cut it, but the bottom line is it wasn't in the original soundtrack. But she was commissioned to write the song for it. But I thought that song is a beautiful song about long-term relationships and marriages.
Beautiful.
Like that line that you and I will be like a couple of cosmonauts, except with way more gravity than when we started off. Like that's a relationship. That's a long-term relationship right there. Like that's it. But yeah, but ultimately with Fiona, again, fun week to listen to. This is she is definitely a weird singer. I mean, this is a person who has she has a 1999 album that's 90. The title is 90 words long. Like this is a type of weird sort of out there artist that she is. That album When the Pawn. It's short for When the Pawn Hits the Conflicts He Thinks Like a King. What he do. I'm not gonna go into it with that. That's the album. The album title is 90 words long. Like this is the type of person we're thinking of. And it's things like this is when I thought of Fiona Apple before this, I always thought that was that crazy chick from the 90s with a really good voice. And I remember that she had a VMA acceptance speech that was one of the things that made the public realize how crazy she was. And I was like, okay, I remember that happening, but I didn't remember exactly what it was. And I listened to it again. I'm going to play it for you guys.
Let's hear it.
It's not as crazy as I might have thought, but this is her in 1999 accepting the Best New Artist award for the VMAs.
Best New Artist?
Okay. Best New Artist in 1997.
Oh, man. I didn't prepare a speech, and I'm sorry, but I'm glad that I didn't because I'm not going to do this like everybody else does it. Because everybody that I should be thanking, I'm really sorry, but I have to use this time. See, Maya Angelou said that we as human beings at our best can only create opportunities. And I'm going to use this opportunity the way that I want to use it. So what I want to say is, everybody out there that's watching, everybody that's watching this world is bull. And you shouldn't model your life. Wait a second. You shouldn't model your life about what you think that we think is cool and what we're wearing and what we're saying and everything. Go with yourself. Go with yourself. And there's just a few people that I want to say something to. I want to say, Mama, I love you. I'm so glad that we're becoming friends. Amber, I love you. You're my sister. You're my best friend. Andrew Slater, no one else could have produced this album and no one else did. And it's just stupid that I'm in this world, but you're all very cool to me, so thank you very much. And I'm sorry for all the people that I didn't thank, but man, it's good. Bye.
So like,
Fuck yeah.
Like, I remember like the memory of that speech being like, oh, this chick is crazy, she's batshit, she's off the walls. No, man. Like, that was one of the most honest, like,
Totally.
just acceptance speeches I've ever heard. Like, she's straight up telling me, it's like, look, like, stop worshiping me. Like, I'm thankful for this shit, but like, you shouldn't be worshiping people like this. Like, you should be like sort of doing your own thing and like, fuck this world. Like, and I don't think she meant it in like the sort of like, oh, like, woe was me. I think she literally meant like, something that like a lot of us,
Forget.
Sort of
Yeah, we forget about this, right? It's something that
Yeah.
escapes us. Yeah, she's one of ours, man.
Exactly. And then like even the line about the mom, like, oh, thank you, mom, like, I'm glad we're starting to be friends again. Like, that's some honesty, man. That's some crazy, like, you don't usually see that shit in acceptance speeches. So the point is, like, all that to say that having the mentality of Fiona Apple being crazy, yeah, she does have some tinge of weirdness and craziness to her, but she also just has like an honesty about her that's just it's commendable. And like, it's dripping all over this album, along with her talent. Her honesty is dripping on this album all over the place, and it's what makes this album pretty good. So again, Gary, thank you again for opening our eyes. I feel like you opened your own eyes with this as well. But yeah, this was a good exercise, and I definitely enjoyed the listen.
100%. Dion, that acceptance speech, which I don't remember, but like, it's so funny. Like, my take on that is, it took, was that 97 you said?
97, yeah.
So it took the world like decades to catch up to that theme, because now people who try to sell you things, where back then they were trying to say, look beautiful, be thinner, wear this makeup because you're fucking ugly. Now the advertising theme is, you're perfect just the way you are, buy our shit. You know what I mean? But like, it took the world a while to catch up with her truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even specifically with acceptance speeches too. Like, I mean, nowadays it's like at least once or twice a year in one of these award shows, some celebrity is going to go up there and say some like political, like, I mean, like, usually left leaning, which is good for us. But like Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech when he won as Joker, like that, like 25 years ago, he gave that speech, he'd have been fucking committed. And again, like, this speech that Fiona Apple did in 97, at the time, it was kind of like panned as like, wow, what, like, that's out there, like, holy shit. Nowadays, it's like, yeah, cool. Like, I commend that. Like, the public would more like sort of accept that as back then, like, as opposed to back then when they didn't.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Anyway,
for sure.
Ben, your last thoughts.
Yeah, Gary, thank you. The trepidation that I felt when this, before I actually pressed play, was fucking stupid. Okay, like, one beautiful thing about my recent adulthood years is that I've come to realize my flaws, and this is a deep flaw of mine, being just having a closed mind before I go into something, and I'm working on it. But like, my mind was closed until I pressed play. So to anyone who's closed-minded enough to be like, I don't think I'm gonna like that, and I'm not talking roller coasters or bungee jumping or fucking, a physical experience. If you're so closed off to like music that you've never heard before, get your head out of your ass, listen to some new shit. And I have to tell myself that, and that's what happened this week. I listened to some new shit. I was impressed. I was moved. It hit all the right notes in many categories. And like I said, some of it was kind of a mess, but some of it was a beautiful, beautiful mess. And I loved some of it. Really, really loved. And I use that word very scarcely. So Gary, thank you again. Had a great time. We're going to bring it back to hip hop for our next week's listen. I gave you two a preview because I wanted to, get you psyched. But for our listeners, next episode will be on Lytyrix, their self-titled album, and their soon after follow-up kind of brother album to it. So it would be Lytyrix, the album, and the Muzappers mixes. We got a 2-week break. You guys can listen to 2 albums. Go put it in. Albums. Well, it's Lytyrix and the Muzappers mixes. I feel like they have to be spoken about in the same context because they came out like really close to each other and they follow a very similar vibe. So, but I want you to listen to both, please, before we meet again.
In some ways, I wish we did this with There Is a Dark Side and what?
Yeah, that would have been dope. That would have been super dope. But at any rate, that's what we're listening to. Latyrix. Check them out. And if you're unfamiliar with the spelling, it is Latyrx. YRX.
Yeah.
Latyrx. Latyrix. That's Latif and Lyrics Born. An amazing rap group out of the Bay Area. And with that, I want to thank you, listeners. I want to thank you for keeping an open mind while we talk about shit that isn't necessarily hip hop. We're going to do it from time to time. And god damn it, it's going to be good. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. I want to say again, thanks as always to our man Fred, the Red Walrus, for all that beautiful intro, outro, interlude music that you hear. Please check him out on Bandcamp. Support his music. Support independent, awesome artists like the Red Walrus. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.